Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tark's Gauntlet, but upside down and orange. To be on brand, it now has to be lower effort than before, so all the graphics are broken, like, look at them, this terrible, awful. And the script sucks. So let's get into it. The House in Fata Morgana. As far as visual novels go, this is one of the rare ones whose reputation may or may not precede it. Something incredible happened upon its release that got more eyes on it than visual novels usually get. It acquired a very rare, perfect score on Metacritic, and a game I will say upfront was worth all the hype. The House in Fata Morgana may have become my favorite visual novel. The story is one that at first seems to function as an anthology piece, as a mysterious person, the player character, awakes in a first-person perspective and stumbles their way to an otherworldly mansion. At the mansion, they're greeted by an obsequious maid who seems to know who they are, and in an attempt to restore their memory, the maid walks the player through the mansion telling stories of all the events that transpired within the estate. The stories stretch back centuries and tell tales of love and loss, obsession, abuse, and suffering. Though the stories share common themes and a thread can be woven between them to join them all together, they all stand alone as their own great addition to the experience. Beyond the first quarter of the game, the plot becomes more focused and streamlined, drawing more attention to the identities of the characters we met in the stories and the true identities of the maid and the player character and what their backstory and relationship to the mansion actually is. The House in Fata Morgana is a painful experience, raw emotional devastation, but it is also a beautiful experience, tender and moving, endearing. Honestly, this is the type of story that I fully believe gives players a richness to their life. A story that I feel can help people see and understand the meaning of art. While the character portraits in the game are all super nice, as is any event illustration, I think the most commendable aspect is the dialogue writing. There's a poetry to the way people speak here that is seldom seen. A passion behind the words that harkens back to a more romantic era of writing. It brought to mind the works of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, most specifically his 1774 piece, The Sorrows of Young Werther, another story that weaves passion and tragedy very effectively. The music is also worthy of high praise and honestly deserving of a real introspective study, but that's well beyond the scope of what I aim to accomplish here today. The House in Fata Morgana is a rather long visual novel, with no real gameplay besides decision points, which are few and far between, and the Dreams of the Revenants edition comes with a ton of additional content and new upscaled art. On the added content, I will say they bring joy in diminishing returns, but the first two big DLC stories are still worth reading. The additional short stories they include are a little less so, but I can't comment on them holistically as I honestly didn't read every single one of them. By this point, I was just getting a little bit burnt out. By the time I unlocked them, I felt I had everything I needed and then some, and the short stories were a little superfluous from what I read. I was happy with where the main game ended and wouldn't have minded if that's all there was, but I don't regret my time with the two big added stories either, even if the art for the third story was a massive change of direction that kinda gave me whiplash to see. By the third DLC, they added voiceovers, which are not present for the main game, but it never really felt like an issue for me. All in, The House in Fata Morgana was unforgettable, and if you like visual novels, this is one not to miss, even if they use ellipses like they're going out of style. 10 out of 10. All aboard the pain train. Yurukill, the Calumniation games. So this is a mixed bag if I ever seen one, like a 5.5 out of 10 kind of game, very middle of the road. Thing is, Yurukill, the Calumniation games is very much a product of its inspirations, and it feels like it was really just, mashing a bunch of stuff we're already familiar with together. On the surface, it's a neat gimmick. It's a Danganronpa 999 style visual novel with a death game attached, but mashed up with a shmup. The shmup sections don't exactly blow anything out of the water, but they're still a lot of fun. They have a cool sort of responsive difficulty. The longer that you do really well in those shoot 'em up sections, the harder they get. Then as soon as you take a hit, difficulty drops back down. It's really neat, honestly, and makes it so that just about anybody can beat them, and given that this is a visual novel first, this was a really good decision from a design perspective, because people who primarily play visual novels, might not have the skill and response time to get through something like a shoot 'em up. The setting of the game is really neat. It's sort of like a theme park island, kind of like something you'd see in Dead Man Wonderland, and the interface feels very ripped out of Persona. The game tends to lack its own identity, and I think that really drags on the experience as it goes along. And where it is ripping off from other things, it's like it's halfway there. All the things that it's trying to do that it took from other games were better in the games that they came from. And like, I hate to say it, because I'm not one of those people who are like, hey, if I wanted to play the original instead of the ripoff, I'd just play the original. Darksiders 1 is one of my favorite adventure games, and that stole from everything. So I'm not against, you know, mashing up ideas and having very obvious influences. But in this one, it's, you know, they're considerably less than what they took from. There is also a puzzle solving aspect to this game, some logic puzzles and like kind of point and click style stuff. In that sense, we're more into the Virtue's Last Reward territory than Danganronpa. But these puzzles, like everything else in the game, it's a super mixed bag. Some of the puzzles are brain dead simple, and some of them, the logic is just way out the window. Like you kind of need some sort of advanced understanding of certain things to really get it. The one thing I think I can give this game absolute credit on, some of the soundtrack for one, even though some of it sounds like it was taken straight from Xenogears, like listen to this. But the character portraits and the character art. A lot of people might not be, you know, over the moon with the design of the characters, but I think the art and just the game's presentation in general was pretty fantastic. Yurukill, the Calumniation games, is maybe good for a sort of introductory style visual novel for those who still need more gameplay as part of the experience to transition into fully enjoying visual novels. But, you know, I played the house in Fata Morgana like right before this, so boy, the bar was, I wasn't ready to lower the bar that much. Yurukill, the Calumniation games, it still has its place out there, and I think it will have some fans. It's just, you know, I'm not really one of them. Mario Wonder. Mario Wonder is the newest side-scroll Mario game. These were my bread and butter growing up. I love these games. Mario 3, probably like my third favorite game of all time. If I really had to create a ranking, you know, Mega Man 2, Legend of Dragoon, probably Mario, Super Mario 3. And Mario Wonder feels like the best side-scroll Mario game since Mario 3 and Mario World. Thing is, I don't know if it's gonna be quite as replayable, because like, a lot of what made it so good was the spectacle and randomness and just not knowing what to expect. The Wonder Shroom items transform the stages in really cool and interesting ways and make almost every stage and every other moment in the game incredibly interesting, incredibly unique. It's super fun, but it's also a really easy game to just get through and 100% see everything your first time around. The new power-ups were a lot of fun, and the secret stages were a lot of fun, but I don't think the secret stages quite live up to like the secret stages at the end of Star Road in Mario World, the Special Zone stages. That said, the very final hidden secret stage, yeah, man, I must have lost 60 or 70 men on that, which, you know, I had the men to spare because the game was fairly easy. But yeah, I don't know, man, it's a Mario game. Like, what more can you say? You jump and platform and bounce on enemies, find the secrets. I don't know. It was just a really good, really fun time, and I don't think it needed to be anything more than that. I had a lot of fun with Mario Wonder. People who like side-scroll Mario games, definitely not one to miss. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Another Nintendo game. This one was quite transformative for the Kirby series, having 3D stages for what I believe is the first time. And while I thought from the trailers that this was going to function like Mario Odyssey, and like it sort of does, because you know, you're Kirby, you absorb powers. Mario Odyssey, Cappy kind of absorbs powers in a similar way. I found more than anything this functioned a lot like Super Mario 3D World. And I know when that game came out, it was on Wii U, nobody played it. I did, I had a Wii U, I like the Wii U. And Mario 3D World was one of my favorite 3D Mario games prior to this. But yeah, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, very much like Mario 3D World. The mouthful mode, 1, hilarious in presentation, but 2, transforms gameplay in really interesting ways. Again, similar to what like Mario Wonder done, but I don't think they quite done enough with mouthful mode. So essentially, Kirby can suck up these very large objects and become a car or a construction cone or a staircase or a vending machine, stuff like that. And they all have their own unique control capabilities and their own challenges tied to them. This stuff keeps the game really interesting, but there's not very many mouthful mode transformations. I guess there didn't really need to be because the game isn't all that long, but when you're going for 100%, you know, you spend longer in these levels, you kind of want to see more by the time you hit the end. And I did go for 100%, and it was a fine enough experience up to a certain point. There was a level really late game that was boss after boss after boss. The checkpoint system to the bosses just wasn't very good, and due to secret hidden objectives that you need to go back into the stages to do your second time around, made it so that you had to do this all in one go or do it without dying, and you can't save mid-stage, so I can't load my file. You have to cancel out of the stage anytime you get hit, and that was really quite frustrating. Probably the only frustrating part of the game, though. It was a fairly easy game. It's a Kirby game. There's not much you can say about it. There is a cool little central hub in the game that you build out as the game goes along, and you get more special quests through that central hub. There's also a multiplayer mode, but I didn't really mess with that. I played this game solo, and that's all I wanted. By the end of it all, I still really enjoyed my time. Kirby is almost never a bad time. And if you've been curious about it at all, I think Kirby's first foray into the world of 3D level design was definitely worth the purchase. Baba Is You. The last game we're going to talk about today is Baba Is You, an absolutely confounding masterpiece of a puzzle game that I'm never going to play again. Actually, have I talked about this one already? Let me just check. I don't see it. So yeah, Baba Is You is this crazy logic puzzle game that it's quite literal. We're dealing with like computer coding syntax type logic. So you play as this little rabbit, Baba, who is you, and you're in these single screen puzzle stages. All around the stage, you'll see little words scattered around, and Baba can take and push these words to form sentences. And the sentences you form transform the level. So like you got Baba Is You, so that means you control Baba, but like maybe instead you push a word like key is you. All of a sudden, you're the key and you're controlling the key. Or maybe you say Baba is key, and then Baba turns into the key, but nobody is you, so you lose control, and your time in that level's basically over. You gotta reset or rewind a few steps. Baba Is You is incredible in its execution and the depth of its puzzles. I will say, I think they get a little too abstract the further in you get, but like, it's hard to look at that and be like, wow, this is anything less than genius. It's just, hey, maybe I'm not genius enough to get it, and it can get frustrating, but it's consistently mind-blowing just seeing what you can do with these little logic commands. Like you can say there's a whole field of lava, right? You can say, oh, lava is wall, and it turns it all into walls. Or like maybe you say wall is you, and then you're able to control every wall in the stage. It all moves at once. It's absolutely wild and mind-blowing. You can wrap the game up and like technically beat it in probably an hour if you know what you're doing, but like 3 hours just to hit credits. But then there's like 2 or 3 times the amount of secret optional content, stages that you need to solve puzzles in unique ways in stages or even on the world map to be able to find them. Yeah, I don't know. Baba Is You is a crazy masterpiece. I think any puzzle game enjoyer should play once. I'm never gonna play it again. I love the game, but it frustrated the hell out of me at the same time. Not in the worst ways, in the best ways. Although there were so many times I would start up a new stage, and before moving my character, I would have to stare at it for like 5 minutes and be like, what am I doing? What the hell am I supposed to do with this? Because it is really quite the brain teaser. But that's the last game we're gonna talk about on this episode of games I've been playing, now located on Tark's Inverted. If you guys played any of these games, let me know down below. If you like the video, also sound off, just leave a comment anyway. It's good for the algorithm or some stuff like that. Like, subscribe, you guys know the deal. Piss in the sink.